There are different types of activities that will need different demands, such as a marathon runner would need a high aerobic capacity, as they will be running for a high duration, low intensity. However, for a 100-meter sprinter, they will need a low duration, high intensity, and a high anaerobic capacity. This means that the 100-meter sprinter would have to train very differently to the marathon runner, as the marathon runner would need to work predominantly aerobically, and the 100-meter runner would need to work predominantly anaerobically. However, they will both use the FIT principle, which stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. Frequency would be how many times a week you train, and intensity would be how intense and how hard you are working. Time is how long you'll be working for per week, and type would be what sort of training you are doing, such as continuous training or plyometric training or strength training, for instance. So the 100-meter runner would have to be doing lots of strength training and plyometric training to improve their muscles and strength, the strength in their muscles in their lower body. However, the marathon runner would have to focus on continuous training, as they'll be doing training and performing for a long time when it comes to training and races. Aerobic training would be predominantly for the marathon runner. The marathon runner would have to at least train 3 months before the actual race itself to perform and get the adaptations and changes in the body that it needs. For instance, there will be a huge change in the aerobic capacity of the athlete, and this can be improved by lots of training, especially continuous training, and also the use of fartlek training to improve their speed in the race. Continuous training is where the athlete will run for a long time, generally over an hour and a half, without stopping or having a rest. They will also have to train between roughly 40% of their heart rate to 60% of their heart rate when doing this training. However, if they increase their training, do fartlek training, they may increase this to around 70 to 80%, as this will improve their speed throughout the race, which is very handy and what many professionals will do. However, they will usually spend around 15 minutes doing this, which means they actually spend less time performing the activity, unlike continuous training. 100-meter sprinter would predominantly be doing anaerobic training, as this is perfect for what they do. As this is for athletes who need to train for a very high intensity but a low duration, which is perfect for the 100-meter sprint, as it usually lasts around about 10 seconds. This means that they would need to train using weights and using very heavy weights, but using low reps, such as 1 to 6 reps. When doing this, they can always do their 1 rep max at 90%, which will also improve their muscles strengths in their body, which is very handy for the 100-meter sprinter, as this is what they'll need to be focusing on. However, they can also do their 6 reps with a medium weight to also increase their anaerobic strength in their muscles. They would also need to train at least 4 times a week as well. This could be, say, on Monday they do strength training and weight training, and then on the Wednesday they do actual sprinting, and on Friday they do more leg strength training, for instance. High intensity interval training, which stands for HIIT training, would also improve the cardiovascular adaptations, as this will improve them anaerobically, which will be perfect for the 100-meter sprinter, which they could also do at least one day of this per week to improve. The neuromuscular adaptations, there are lots of different neuromuscular adaptations that can occur within the body when training. For instance, it can increase the hypertrophy, increase the tendon strength, increase the glycogen store, increase the myoglobin stores, and also increase the neural pathways. The graph above is after the training has occurred, after 3 months of worth of training, and this shows that the person, when taking part in the Wingate test, has a much more steady decrease than the person who would have done it before, as this is a solid line which shows that they can hold a steady high pace for the whole 20 seconds. This also shows that the graph shows that their peak power was just above 15 weight per kilogram, and the normative value for this is just below 11. So this shows that the athletes has delayed fatigue, which means that they would have improved their fascicular fibers, which is vital when doing an event such as the Wingate test. Physiological adaptations when doing high intensity and short duration training is that the strength power can increase of the muscles as they are being put under high stress very frequently, which will make them much more stronger, as they will have to do it more often, which means that they will adapt and become more explosive. This then also means that the muscle size will increase due to the hypertrophy building up. This can also occur from training such as plyometrics and strength and weight training. There will also be an increase in motor use units, as they will all need to work together to put as much power into the effort and load you are trying to either lift or perform. This means that there will be more motor units around, as the force will make there be more motor units be recruited, so that the athlete can lift or perform that exercise, which means this then helps when doing the actual event itself, as they will have more power, which means that they will also be quicker when doing the event. Energy systems can change due to the amount of PC and glycolytic stores that can build up. These can be changed by high levels of training for a fairly long duration of time. For instance, if you want to change your energy stores, you will have to train for at least 4 times a week for a good 3 months for you to have a significant notice, which means that the 100-meter athlete will need to train its high intensity to improve their energy stores, so they can increase them, and so they can avoid OBLA. OBLA stands for the onset of blood accumulation, and is where the lactic acid builds up in your muscles, and is when you feel uncomfortable and become fatigued. This is also known as hitting the wall, especially in marathon runners, when they get up to the around 20 miles and they don't have any carbohydrates left to use. You will want to buffer this blood, which means you can increase the tolerance to this lactic acid, which means that you won't feel as much discomfort when the lactic acid sets in. However, you also want to try and delay the lactic acid, so this means that you need to train this so you can adapt to it, so your body doesn't get effects of it until later on in the race. You will also want to have metabolic adaptations, which means that the changes in the body can allow you to use the energy more effectively and efficiently, such as using fats instead of just carbohydrates, as this will give you much more energy per gram of fat compared to carbohydrates, and you also have an unlimited store when racing. This can also help by using ATP without oxygen, as this will allow you to still continue but without the use of oxygen. Also, you want to be better at increasing your phosphocreatine store and carbohydrate store without using oxygen, as it's much better to use the fats in your body, as you want to have a better ability to use the ATP-PC system when working at higher intensities. This will also help when changing your energy systems to when adaptating, as you will need to break down the phosphocreatine and then break down the ATP to create ATPase, which helps make the glucose to give us energy, and which will simply give you more power and speed when competing in these races. The skeletal system. Osteoporosis is where the bones become weak over time, and especially when you're older. Osteoarthritis is where, and very common in road runners, as the force of them landing on the hard ground can make their bones in their legs weaker. The adaptations that you'll need to do to improve this and adapt to would be that you need to train roughly 4 times a week for at least 3 months to see the adaptations actually happen in the skeletal system. This will mean that you will need to have an increased amount of calcium stores, so this can increase the density in your bones, which will then make them stronger. Also, this will mean that your ligaments and tendons that attach to your bone won't be put as much under stress on the bones. And this also means that if you have a higher calcium store, that you are less likely to tear tendons or ligaments, as it will also make your osteoblasts stronger, which will mean that the bone's tissue. Road running can also be often to say quite bad for you, and you should run on more giving surfaces such as grass, as when you're running on the road, this is very hard surface, and if you continuously do this, it can destroy your cartilage in your knees, as the continuous force of your knees hitting the ground at hard force can make them wear down over time. When getting older, it is vital that we still exercise and still keep our bones strong, as if you just sit around and lounge around all day, you may be subject to osteoporosis, which means if you have a fall, you may get a fracture easily, or much more likely to get one if you didn't do exercise. This is because when you exercise, your bones will still become strong, as they will use the calcium stores to maintain their strength, or at least decrease at a slower rate when you get much older. So, for instance, you should still try and do some exercise, for instance lunges, to keep your bones and tendons much stronger, so if you do have a fall or overstretch, your muscles are prepared for it.